This is breaking news from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, sponsored by Michael Gaughan's South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa.
Be best going forward, and just trying to look at everything from all sides and see if we can't put together the best group that we can. It gives us the best chance to compete every week. So I think it's still a fluid process. There's still some things that I would say are up in the air here relative to practice squad or those kind of things. And but right now I think we've tried to put together the group that we feel best about going forward, and I'm sure there'll be some things that get tweaked here.
That it wasn't going to come down to where you came from or who you are or any of that type of stuff drafted. You traded Neil Farrell and released Matthew Butler, 2 draft picks. Is that kind of a sign of that? I
don't think we were trying to make a statement with that. I think it was we're just trying to have a fair, honest evaluation of where we're at and who's played the best, and what gives our team the best chance to win. Both players were competitive. Both players have improved, and anytime you trade, a player, especially when you do it in the division, you just gotta, if that's what you think is best, then you make the decision that you think is best for your team. Matthew is one of the few that I can confirm is back on the practice squad right now. So, we released him, but also, have a chance to continue working with him, which is great. And again, I think we just got to hold ourselves to that standard of whatever's best for the team. Those are the decisions we want to try to make, regardless of how they got here, what round it was, free agency, not free agency, whatever. We're just trying to do the best thing for the 2023 Raiders.
There's going to be a lot of more movement going on, but a guy like Christian Wilkerson, who you've been working with since he was in New England, how cool is it to kind of see him initially earn his way onto this team with this opportunity?
Yeah, K. Wilkes worked really hard, since I've known him, and had an injury last year. It was kind of an unfortunate situation, and in training camp last year, where he kind of didn't really have an opportunity to have a season last year. So I think he's worked really hard to put himself in position to compete this year in camp, and I thought he did some good things in the summer. I thought he did some good things in the games, competed hard, and not only on offense but in the kicking game as well. So that room was very competitive. It was probably one of the more competitive rooms we've had. In the 2 years we've been here, and tough decisions, and just felt like he had done enough to really earn an opportunity.
All your draft picks made the initial roster. I know going back to April, you guys said this could possibly be foundational to what you want to build here. I know they're ultimately going to be judged by what they do in the games, but how happy are you with the class as a whole and what you've seen from them in the last week?
Yeah, there's a lot to be determined, I'd say. Like you said, none of them have played in a real game yet. So, I think for any young players, you need to see it for a few years, and kind of what is it going to be. None of them are what they're going to be. And so the development process continues. We had that conversation with the guys this morning. This is not the end. This is the beginning of a different phase of the year, and so we keep working with them. We keep teaching them. We keep doing extra with them if we can on the field, in the meeting room. They need to get themselves into a professional working routine now that the regular season is close to being here. And so there's another element of teaching that they're going to go through here, and how to go through a regular season week, how to understand an opponent, how to learn a game plan. That process is going to be new to all of them too. So, I'm excited for our coaching staff to keep working with them and coaching them, and those guys are all excited to continue to work and develop, and hopefully some of them are going to contribute here quickly.
You guys kept more defensive linemen than any other position group on the team. What's the importance of having so much depth?
You said kept
more defensive linemen.
Kept them, yeah.
What's the importance of having that much depth at that position?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough position. Once you let them go, it's just so hard to, that's not an easy position to go get somebody in October when you need somebody based on an injury. And so, young, good, healthy defensive linemen, whether they're tackles, ends, or have some kind of versatility to play both. If you have them, you probably ought to keep them, as many of them as you can, within reason. I mean, it's hard to probably keep more than what we have, but I just feel like you got to give yourself a chance in the trenches. If you don't do that, and you start losing there, it doesn't really matter what else you have. So, it felt like we had a competitive group there between the tackles, the ends, the whole room was competitive. I think we had some guys that gave us some versatility, play some inside, play some outside, rush a little bit from both spots. I think that's important. So our depth overall, I think, is decent, and we have some young players obviously that are going to need to keep developing and improving. And but overall, I thought tried to make the best decision for ourselves under that premise.
The other side of the line, what did Greg Van Roten show you? And we talk so much about the cohesion and the continuity. Where is he in that process of kind of integrating himself in that group?
Yeah, I think he's right there. He's been a really important cog for us here as we've kind of gone through training camp. He acclimated quickly to our terminology. He's a physical guy that practices, well every day and does a good job of communicating with the guys on either side of him, understands the offense, has played a lot of football, has multiple position value for us. So if something were ever to happen, you'd have some flexibility there with both him and Dylan, and really all the guys inside other than Andre, have some flexibility to center there. So good football player. Glad we have him.
How tough was that evaluation for the offensive line? It looked like it was pretty deep, and then also putting Wagner on IR.
Yeah, the offensive line was very similar to the defensive line. There was a lot of guys that we were, we were playing a lot of football in the preseason to try to really get a good evaluation of them. Thought the joint practices really helped us, try to figure out exactly what the right, concoction of those guys was going to be here. We're able to get, a couple of these guys. I think we're headed towards getting a couple of these guys back to our practice squad, which is good. And then Wags, I thought he was really competitive. He's been dealing with something that, finally kind of looks like, we needed to address it, which we did. And, he'll eventually be back and working out and doing all the things he needs to do here while he's able to be in the meetings, which is good. And, hopefully get himself ready for another year next year.
I wonder what the process is for, all these months you've been kind of preparing for a season to decide a roster. And now it's to practice and prepare for an opponent, the Denver Broncos. So something kind of has to switch over from the coaching staff to the players. What is that process like? And do you feel that in the building where it's starting to get to that point of the season?
Yeah, it's getting there. These next 2 days are really going to continue to be a little bit more about us and what we need to do and kind of finalizing everything with the roster. And, there's some things we can get done here for sure, but I'd say that that energy will completely shift, obviously, over the weekend and into next week when the players are back on Tuesday. So, you haven't really done this. That's what I was saying about the rookies. They have never done it. So, the coaches are already starting to kind of, go through that scouting report process, the initial stages of, what that might look like. We're hard at work at trying to evaluate their roster, and kind of what they have. They have some moving parts. We have some moving parts, like every team does at this point. So the evaluation and the competition about who you're going to be working against and what that's going to look like is still up in the air a little bit. That'll get kind of firmed up here in the next so many days. And then you turn all your effort and energy towards what do we got to do to win? How do we got to play the game? So we'll get into that obviously next week, but they're going to be well coached. I know that for sure. And it's a different style of play, different culture. They have different coaches, so this is going to be a big challenge. But this week we'll put the finishing touches on what we've been working on here in terms of trying to complete our roster and focus on ourselves here for another couple of days, and then really shift towards them next week.
Was the plan always to go with 3 quarterbacks, or was there any discussion with 1 or 2?
No, I mean not really. It was to go with 3, and not for any specific reason other than we felt like we had 3 guys that were capable, of being roster players. And Aiden's obviously got a lot of developing in front of him, and Brian's played plenty of football, and obviously excited about Jimmy. So feel like we got a good room. We'll figure all that out, as we head into next week and beyond relative to how we'll do that. But I like what those guys are doing. They work well together. The guys with some experience offer their hand to Aiden, when he has opportunities to learn from them. And those guys are hard at work at trying to, get ready themselves. So that's a position that's important, obviously, as we know, and having some depth there is never a bad thing.
You guys got 5 safeties. Is that kind of a sign of where football has sort of gone at that position? Seems like you're asking safety to do more maybe than in the past.
Yeah. I think we have 5 decent football players, and we probably had more than that. We did have more than that, honestly. So it depends on how you want to use them. If you're going to play some of them down there at the nickel spot at times against some of the multiple tight end groups, some people are playing some of those guys down there at linebacker, a little bit more. So each team's different. Some teams are very simple in terms of how they use their personnel, and other teams try to get a little bit more matchup, oriented. We just felt like we had guys that can compete in the kicking game, help us win there, and compete on defense. And across the, we got 11 guys in the secondary that have some version of roles, flexibility, etc. And try to use them the best we can.
How difficult a decision, I guess, was Drake Thomas? Was there disappointment that he wasn't able to clear waivers?
Yeah, I mean, you take a chance, obviously, with every player that you release, and you try to get back to your practice squad. I think there was 24 players claimed out of 1,200, whatever it was. So, the odds are technically in your favor until they're not. So, just saw Drake. He was great. Great kid. Gave us everything he had. He's going to contribute. To an NFL roster. I think Seattle's the team that claimed him. So, he was competitive in the kicking game, competitive on defense. It's just one of those things where you try to create the right 53, and sometimes you're going to miss out on a guy here if you want to keep working with him on the practice squad. But wish him nothing but the best. He'll do a great job there. They got a good football player.
How beneficial, Josh, is it then to have that roster exemption spot for Josh Jacobs in terms of working him back in, but also still dealing with the roster?
Yeah, I mean it gives you a little bit of flexibility, and for a little bit. So, I'm eager to have him on the practice field and just get him started and get him acclimated here the next couple of days and then into next week. And there's always things you're sorting through, whether it's injuries or just other decisions that you want to try to make sure you got the right thing going into the season. So we'll take our time and try to make the right choice on that.
You guys have a handful of guys that have been working through some stuff, trying to get back. Are they getting a little bit closer, like a Chandler Jones?
Yeah, we're close. You're going to see a bunch of them out there today. So, we're nearing. We'll never be at full health, it seems like. So, but we're getting closer. There's going to be a bunch of them out there. You'll see them today that are working back in, and that's generally how it works. If you're trying to make smart decisions and get them back, it doesn't. A lot of times it doesn't pay to get them back too early, and then they're out for the beginning of the season, et cetera. So a lot of these guys are turning the corner.
What do you have to do with the offense here in the next couple of days with Josh Jacobs back before you get into game week practices next week? What do you do with these next 2 days to make sure that things get implemented completely?
Yeah, I think like I said, he's one of the smartest football players, that you're going to coach. So we didn't change our vernacular or terminology much. So I think just for him in general, just getting reacclimated to certain things in terms of his footwork and seeing certain schemes, etc. Really getting a great opportunity to meet a few of his teammates that he hasn't had an opportunity to meet. Offensively, we're not, I know I've said this many times. I don't think you go into the beginning of the season and kind of reinvent the wheel. So, we've been doing certain things and getting ready for the season, and that's probably what we're going to spend most of our time on between now and next week. And I think he'll acclimate very easily back into the system and what he's doing. And then we'll just see how the overall conditioning and readiness to play, how many snaps is that going to be, et cetera. We'll figure that out here in the next 10 days.
Is it kind of a lift to everyone having him back in here? From the clips we've got to see, it seems like he's beaming, thrilled to be back. I know there's kind of a dead period before the first game. Do you think it kind of uplifts everyone to go like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's nobody in our building that doesn't love him. So, coaches, players, support staff, everybody's excited to see him. I think he's excited to be here. Loves being a Raider. So this is, yeah, it's exciting whenever you get a player back, whether it's from injury or something like this. I mean, it's always gives you a little bit of a boost.
Two more, Adam and Paul.
Did you guys do a captain's voting yet?
No, not yet.
Who won the backup quarterback position, or is that still ongoing competition?
We're gonna. I don't know that we're ever gonna say we won one or not. You know, to me, I've always looked at it like we have a starter, and then everybody behind him is going to be ready to go. Obviously, Paul will have to declare, you know, what we're going to do. You know, as we head into the regular season on a week-to-week basis. I think Brian's done a good job with his opportunities. He knows that, and then Aiden's continued to learn and develop. There's some other factors there that I would say that. You know, sometimes you don't look at it that way because you're evaluating the play on the field. But as you head into the regular season, you know, nobody but the starter gets many opportunities in practice. And so you just got to take into consideration what that would be like, you know, because to me, you know, playing a game with repetitions in practice is different than playing in a game with no repetitions in practice. And so, you know, just making smart choices about how that would work and what the right thing for the team would be, putting the right players in the right position if that were to occur. I think that's always something I think about, you know, relative to this position. And, you know, and that's different there. If you know you have an injury and you have, you know, we're going to play 3 weeks here without our starter. Now we have an opportunity to go ahead and figure out what we want to do with practice, and that's a different conversation. So we'll work through it here in the next 10 days here. We know we're going to have to declare something there and then try to make the best decision for the team.
When you say declare, you mean like who's going to be out?
Well, on game day, we have to have somebody as the third quarterback. You know what I mean? So as we do that, we're not going to have all three of them inside the 47. So, you know what I mean? Not unless we have a bunch of injuries. So we'll have to declare that. Yep.
Thanks, Coach.
Good to go? All right, thanks.
Any anxiety seeing your quarterback in the F-16?
You've been watching Breaking News from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, sponsored by Michael Gaughan's South Point Hotel, Casino, and Spa.